Talking to Simon Marks yesterday about the strategy statement, the foreign policy strategy statement released by the White House, was the only time, really, that I felt seen, that I felt my fears and confusion reflected by somebody I respect, somebody who I think is more across the facts than I am. And there's not a lot of it about. And it takes a peculiar form of, I would like to say confidence, but I think sometimes it's also arrogance, to find yourself thinking everybody else is wrong and we're right. Everybody else should be a lot more exercised about this moment, about this event, about this development. But they're not. They are either ignoring it completely, or in the case of one columnist in the Times, I should probably double-check, but they appear to have written a whole piece about this without once mentioning that the national security strategy has been greeted by the Kremlin with undisguised, or at least ill-disguised, glee. How could anybody do that? How could anybody write an article? As I say, I should probably double-check. But if you are talking about the foreign policy strategy of your, I'm going to say your closest ally. That's probably not true, but we get a little bit dewy-eyed, don't we, about the legacy of the Second World War and the role that the United States played in changing the game post-Pearl Harbor. But let's just say one of our staunchest allies, a country essentially birthed by Britannia. It's a slightly uncomfortable figure of speech, but a country birthed by Britannia, one of our oldest, staunchest allies, the other half of the so-called special relationship, has got us in the crosshairs, has got the whole of Europe in the crosshairs, in its crosshairs. And we either don't know what to do, we're either so daunted by the scale of this development that we are doing that thing, we're not looking up, we're just looking away, we're pretending that it's not happening because thinking about it is too traumatic. We are, I think in a lot of cases, probably in the British media, people have climbed too far up a pole of absurdity and ridiculousness that they don't know how to climb down. If you used the phrase Trump derangement syndrome, for example, to describe people expressing concern or warning about the obvious direction of traffic, how on earth do you? It's a bit like Brexit. If you told people to vote for Brexit, how on earth do you return to the subject without wearing a hair shirt and indulging in at least 3 hours of self-flagellation, as well as shouting sorry from the top of Nelson's column for an entire morning? How would you do that if you told people to vote for Brexit, or if you told people to calm down a bit about Donald Trump? How do you deal with the new reality where Brexit is obviously a disaster and Donald Trump has essentially put the whole of Europe and specifically the United Kingdom in the crosshairs? He has, I'm going to say this slowly, he has sided with Vladimir Putin against the United Kingdom. The President of the United States of America has sided with Vladimir Putin against the United Kingdom, against the whole of Europe, in fact. But I don't know whether we're ready to speak as Europeans yet, as opposed to speaking simply as Brits. And I know that it is sometimes hard to believe that there's any purpose or plan behind this at all. And I know that sometimes it can be quite dispiriting to find yourself searching for the rationale, searching for the rationale behind what is going on. But I don't think we can help ourselves, and I don't know what else we can do. How on earth do you solve a problem if you don't know what the problem is? How on earth do you discuss what Donald Trump is doing now without wondering why he is doing it? Can you answer that question? That's going to be the phone-in, by the way. I'll give you a quick heads up. 0345 60 60 973 is already the number that you need. Why is Donald Trump attacking Europe in such extraordinary ways? I don't understand why. It doesn't strengthen his position at home, does it? Does it? I mean, it doesn't improve the economy. It doesn't bring down prices. It doesn't do any of the things that foreign policy It doesn't enhance peace. It doesn't increase the likelihood of peace in Europe, giving Putin what he wants after he's invaded a sovereign country. Says, next time you invade a sovereign country, fill your boots, mate. It does the polar opposite of promoting peace. I know what you're thinking. How on earth could the winner of the inaugural FIFA Peace Prize, not be in the business of promoting peace? But well, that's for the judging panel. Why is he doing it? Why is he doing it? Why is he targeting Europe? I mean, the language is a curious combination of dangerous and ridiculous. He doesn't even mention the word democracy until page 16. A 29-page document described by Vladimir Putin's press secretary as largely consistent with our vision doesn't mention democracy until page 16, and then only 3 times across the entire document. Because it is a statement of intent. It is a statement of rejection of democracy. He favours countries. I mean, he's done it with China already this morning. He favours leaders that are repelled by democracy. He favours leaders that rubbish democracy. He looks at Putin and he looks at Xi and he thinks, I'd like a bit of that. I mean, you see what I mean about those mornings where we just have to pause and take stock. What's the alternative? What is the alternative? He doesn't matter. So that the United States national security strategy denigrates democracy and attacks allies, among whom we are arguably the oldest and the staunchest. I'll say that again. The United States national security strategy has absolutely delighted the Kremlin and disgusted every leader in Europe. It denigrates democracy and it demonizes allies. It delights enemies, including war criminals, and it angers or dismays friends and allies. Right? I mean, what do I do now? What do I do? Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Is this like, why is this not the major topic of conversation on every news platform? Does it all go back to February? Is this old news? Is that appalling behaviour in the Oval Office when Volodymyr Zelensky visited the White House the reason why some people are perhaps not as bamboozled, discombobulated, disgusted, whatever you want to call it? What on earth is happening? Maybe, is it a big deal? I mean, does it matter if we slightly romanticised or mythologised the importance of the United States over the last 100 years, 80 years? I don't think so. The idea of the United States dancing to the Kremlin's tune while telling Europe to go whistle surely has a significance that reaches far beyond its own shores and well into ours. Why is he doing this? And what is it likely to lead to? Could be the 2 most important questions of our age. And listen, I hate hyperbole. This is what I mean. This is why I needed your indulgence at the top of the show today. I needed you just to sort of give me a little pat on the head and throw me a biscuit, because it's really hard sometimes to do this thing. Why is everybody else not talking about this? Why is nobody else as concerned, as confused, as worried as I am, as we are? Or maybe you're not, but hopefully you are now. Why is he doing it? The idea that, here we go, Europe is facing civilisational erasure. That's the kind of thing, when I was on Twitter a couple of years ago, that made me realise the direction of traffic that the platform was going to go in after Elon Musk bought it. You realised that those weird accounts, which we've recently discovered are largely based in sort of developing countries where people have realised they can make a few quid by promoting white supremacist... people with brown skin can make a few quid promoting white supremacist ideology on platforms where Elon Musk will pay them for their popularity. But the kind of bilge that would come out of, war on the West, or whatever it was, and these ludicrous pictures, increasingly created by AI, pretending that every crime committed in every country west of the Bosphorus was committed by an immigrant or somebody foreign. That whole narrative, that whole ideology, the great replacement theory, which is a byword for being as, well, thicker than mince, racist and frightened of everything, frightened of London, frightened of buses, frightened of tube trains, frightened of gingerbread men. More on that later. But this whole idea that what we once laughed at is now driving the foreign policy of the most powerful country on the planet. And they don't believe it. Of course they don't believe it. They come to London and go to the theatre and don't find themselves in countries that are, or in cities that are more frightening than Washington, D.C., or more dangerous than New York. It's a blatant and obvious lie. If you've never left the boondocks, then you might fall for it. You might think, God, Europe is in all sorts of danger. But if you live here or you visit here, you know that it isn't. It's simply not true. You are infinitely, immeasurably safer in London than you are in Washington or New York or Chicago or Detroit or any city, regardless of whether it's Democrat-run or Republican-run. But he's selling this idea that Europe is undergoing an economic decline eclipsed by the real and more stark prospect of civilisational erasure, which is precisely what Vladimir Putin wants people to believe. And again, like Brexit, sorry, I sometimes worry that too many roads lead back to Brexit, but the way that you turned immigration into the major factor of Brexit was by persuading people in towns and villages where there wasn't any that they were about to be invaded. It's why they hate London so much, these people, because London is an absolute paragon of multicultural virtue. It's an incredible city where we all rub along wonderfully, despite coming from all corners of the globe, and it works quite beautifully. Yes, we've got problems, yes, we've got crime, but, you know, nothing says integration better than having a second-generation Muslim man elected mayor of our capital city 3 years, 3 terms on the trot. All of the things that are supposed to be negatives are positives when you look at them through the lens of London. So why is Donald Trump doing this? Why is Donald Trump attacking Europe?